Welcome back to the FlutterFlow tutorials. My name is Charlie Fairbairn and I am on the Pro No Coders team for FlutterFlow. Just before we start this tutorial, I'm going to run through a couple of things that are going to be covered. I'm actually recording this after I've recorded all the rest, so I have the privilege of 2020 hindsight on this. But one of the things we're going to be covering is some of the rules, the Firebase storage rules, and how they work. They exist here for both for storage, and they also exist over here in a more detailed and constructive way in many respects, because the Firestore rules are more important in many respects. How we can use this built-in system here of FlutterFlow to ensure that our application is completely secure, and what they are generating here. Now, we only touch upon it because I think it's a bigger subject, but what we actually also do is we create an admin portal, an admin login section, and we use conditional visibilities, for instance, to be able to prevent certain people who are not admins from accessing certain aspects of the application. And we introduce adding the isAdmin boolean here. I'm going to show you the first step in how to make a secure admin portal without creating a separate application for it. We also cover something else towards the end of the video, which I felt was very important, and it's demonstrated here on this page that you'll find in the video, which introduces the flex and how we can use flex to avoid more often the black and yellow stripes, which are about overflows, and how we can, for instance, on this page, if you see, as I come in, everything stays exactly in proportion to everything else. I'm not sure whether I completed that to the nth degree going horizontally, vertically I mean, but I nearly did, and it does help enormously in creating an application that works in all the different viewpoints. So that's one of the other things that I'm covering, along with a myriad of different tips and tricks that I come across as I go along. I didn't do this scope in advance and then say, right, I'll write the tutorial around it. So I'm working as though someone has given it to me. So please stick with us if you can. I hope you learn something. I hope you enjoy it. And thank you very much indeed for watching. And we are going to resume on this tutorial exactly where we left off. Now, I have just booted up my project, the one that is documented in the first two tutorials, and it came straight into this page. And whilst that's not the page that I want to really come into, because I want to test it to see what needs to be fixed, but by and large it is fairly accurate on that one. Now, that probably isn't the proper way of testing it. It happened to come into that, if you recall rightly, because it thinks I'm already logged in. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to see my profile page. So I am going to I'm probably going to go over to this one. And just a quick little tip on this one. Some people have asked me, what's the difference between over here doing the lightning rod, as you might call it, and doing it in test mode, and what's the difference between that and the play mode? Well, the play mode is actually not going to give you, for a start, any kind of debugging capabilities that the test mode does, and it doesn't have any kind of instant refresh. So I, generally speaking, would go for the test, but the test will run out after 28 minutes if you're on the Pro plan. If you're on one of the cheaper ones, I think the $30 plan, it's only 10 or 12 minutes. And if you're on the free plan, I think it is the same as that, or maybe even less. But that's the difference here. And also the other thing, that if you are oh, I didn't mean to click that. I meant to click the arrow down button. If you are publishing to the web, there is also a button here that means publish to that means test and run and publish. So it will publish to the web at the same time. You don't have to go down here to the cogwheel in order to publish to the web. Now, what is and isn't working, to be or not to be on that question? And I think what we should really do is come into here or here. Let's come into here and see whether we can just check that things are working correctly as we'd like them to be. So we've got our create account. This is more of a reminder as to where we got last time. We've got our login account, and we do not have anything going on here. That is a blank page. That is correctly a blank page because we haven't filled it out yet. And we need to go back to the scope to see what that button does so we know how to fill this in. And remember, that was using the conditional builder. So every time I click on that button, it's going to set the page variable that we covered in the previous video to be, in this case, probably 7, because I think we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, it seems to be 6, but you get the idea. And also this one will bring us back to this page where we can still, I believe, join the mailing list quite successfully. Well, what would happen if I try to join it? Yes, I can't do it. Enter valid. I have a typo in there. Forgive me, I'll fix that. But I think we can probably, we could try and put in an email address that we've already done, but I'm going to have to guess that because it's been a week or two since I did one of these videos. But let's say I put in, I usually use the same ones. Let's try Mike at mike.com. He's terribly popular, this chap, and we'll join the list. And well, he's joined, so I haven't done that. Obviously I haven't added him, but let's try and add Mike at mike.com again. Actually, there's been an upgrade in version 4 quite recently, and some of the pop-up things that I had working before don't seem to be working anymore, which is a little bit disappointing because it means we have to go back into them. But in the previous tutorials, we definitely saw a message coming up here saying you're already on the mailing list, and there was a snack bar that came up over there. But I am going to have a look at that and cover as to why that is not working. So I'm really covering some of the things that we did last time in case some people have forgotten, but moreover, potentially because if people are coming into session 3, the third video, they might see that we covered quite a lot in the first 2 videos, and I would recommend that if anything, it's like I'm saying, well, we did that, we covered that, go back to number 1 and number 2 because they're all covered there. So we do need to do things, make that button work. I mean, if we just go back to the login, this is working on the conditional builder, and this one takes us back to the mailing list, and we have our login there. So I'm going to log in and just check a few things. I have already seen a couple of things that I want to correct, but as soon as we've done that, we're going to move on to some of the things are going to be details. That's what we're going to do now. For instance, resetting the password would be one of those. We'll be looking at the scope, which is over here, and we're going to have a look at that in greater detail to make sure that we've covered all of those. But we're also going to be doing a couple of other things, which is to add a few more pages. And one of those pages is quite important. It's the difference between the mobile view, which looks pretty good here because we covered that as well. Not terribly good up there. We've got to fix that. But this page, we covered that in a previous video, how to get the flexibility of the viewport over here, and make sure that it resizes correctly. In that case, if you remember rightly, we swapped out one page for another. So we've got a lot of things that are right, and we've got a few things that are wrong, but it wouldn't be right if we just left the things that didn't work to chance. So just quickly going over here, we look at the log. We've got reset password, need an account sign up, and also there was another thing that we needed to do. So once we've signed in, we don't want to have a create account or log in, and I think this was set here as a logout. We've got to find a logout button. So a few things to tidy up. The main part, however, of this tutorial is probably going to be focusing on how you create an admin section. Now, the admin section clearly is going to be something that only you or designated people are going to be able to see. And That is not actually terribly complicated. We're going to go into the user database at the background, and we're going to make sure that there is admin or not is going to be here in the database. And we're going to basically say that if you're not an admin, you cannot see certain pages, and if you are, you can. But we're going to cover that, and we're also going to cover some other things which are related to that, that are part of the Firebase security system that we've got over here. Some of it is over here under the Firebase storage. All right, but a lot of it, in fact, is over here under this cogwheel, and we start talking about who can see what document and how that's managed in the back end. And I think I touched upon that in previous videos. So we're going to cover that. So that becomes quite relevant if we're talking about creating an admin section. It would be extremely tragic, to say the least, if a user somehow got hold of your admin section. And there are two ways we're going to do that. One within the code at the front end, but if that we feel is because that code is on the mobile phone, that's the first door that a hacker would have to get through. The second one is virtually impossible because this is controlled by Firebase and therefore Google. These rules here get sent up to the database, and it's very, very good at doing that. So we're going to cover a few more complex subjects here. And of course, we're going to create some new pages. There aren't that many to go, so we're going to be looking at some of the more intricate little features. Do bear with me while we do that. Okay, I've headed back to the original scope for a couple of reasons. And one of those because I need to see what we need to do and what's left. And we can see that we've got a menu here down that's going to be in the mobile version. But most importantly, what I wanted to know was what we're going to do with this icon over here. And it is described in the scope. In the mobile version, it's going to be a menu like that. And in the desktop version or the wider viewport, we're going to have dashboard, colleagues, account, and logout. Now, really what I wanted was logout, because until we have a proper place to have a logout, we can't really test the app when we log back in again, because it's not really, we can fiddle around with it. And sometimes when the unexpected happens, it's not a great idea. And if you remember earlier, I put the logout button onto, I think, the profile button. So I think we've come to the point at which we need to put this menu in so we can see where all the screens are going. And you can see also here we've got the colleagues. That's going to be a grid format. And we need to know a few other things. Set your password, we cover that. And that is actually the end of the scope. So we're kind of getting quite close to it. And this is to edit your profile. But I do want to put that this menu in here because I want to be able to log out. I think I put it on there earlier on. That was just a temporary placeholder. Now this this menu item is just going to scoot down like this. It's not going to replace anything there. So that is already suggesting to me that we're going to do a stack. So it's going to sit on top, a bit like this whole menu did before. So let's go back to the particular page that we were talking about and see how we can make that as a stack that can drop down. The other thing that I would like to do is to say it can be a bit ugly if it just goes bang like that immediately and pops down. What would be nice if it was eased down a little bit, or there was some kind of effect. Maybe you wanted it to come in from the side. And we haven't really talked about this button over here, and this is called animations. And they're really, it really does make the difference between an application that is a bit brittle and unengaging to something that looks artistic and fluid. So we do need to talk about how animations work in our projects, and I'm going to cover that as well, because for one, they are important to the visual aspect of the application you're developing. And the other one is that they're very satisfying, and it actually looks lovely, and you go, wow, that looks so professional. The other point I'm going to make, just very, very quickly, is that since we've upgraded to another version of FlutterFlow, I've been totally impressed by the speed of the web version. So if there was anyone out there who was were unsure about maybe other platforms out there that you've been working with, that FlutterFlow might be a bit slow on the web version, they're excellent on the mobile version. So let's be clear about that. Then I have just been totally shocked. They have surpassed any expectations of mine about how quick they are, and I will demonstrate that maybe later on if we've got time. But anyway, the point that I was really trying to make is that we are going to put some animations into here, and we're going to put that menu in. So that's the next thing that I'm going to do. I'm just going to focus a little bit on the scope here. And I have spoken to the client just a moment ago, that being Tonya, who is the founder of Pro No Coders. And I wanted to ask her what these screens meant. So fundamentally, what they mean is that in the mobile version, we're going to have a left-hand menu that is black like this. And in the desktop version, we're going to have that, and we're going to have the white one next to it because we've got more space to put into it. So it's not an overlay. It's not something that's going to drop down over the top of things, which vastly simplifies everything. So let's have a look at, we're going to probably look at how we, just to remind ourselves a little bit, how we lay out those containers to get a left-hand menu, get these all interactive. How we would potentially put in, not potentially, what we will do is put in this white menu. So that is how the desktop view looks at. And then I think we're going to come to something that's quite interesting, which is this users ones in a minute. So do bear with me while we look at the menus. I'm going to get to that straight away. So just to totally clarify, this menu is not going to be dropping down on top of other menus over here. That is not in the scope, but it does not mean that we're not going to cover the concept of animations in a minute. But let's have a look at getting that menu sorted out now. Okay, now we're looking at the container menu that we want to assign to this particular menu button. And the temptation on here is to add another container. But we mustn't. And if we do, we'll get confused as to why it doesn't really work, because we're going to put a container and containers below it. And FlutterFlow isn't terribly instructive if you get this structure wrong. What we need to do is create a column first. If you put a container below a container, it can really throw you off. So this structure, it won't throw an error, but it'll do things very unexpected. So we need to put a column in there first, and then we can put a container in, and you can see that that's going to appear. How to put a container under a container, I'm telling you that it wouldn't have appeared. Now we're going to use that container there that is highlighted, and we're going to give that the width of 100, and we are going to leave that exactly as it is. We're going to make sure that the it's pretty much transparent, so we're going to clear the color on there so it doesn't interfere with that. That's just protecting the space of the of the layer that we had in the stack, if you remember that we covered that. So we can continue into the column to add another container, which is also just going to appear as a little box, and we'll just make that infinity wide. And this is where we're going to put in, we'll change that to 100%, why not? Let's see how that works out. And we have some overlap over here. It doesn't like that particularly because 100% is 100% of the whole page, and therefore if that is occupying 10% and we put 100% on there, it's not going to work. And it can be a little bit frustrating on there, so the height of that is going to be 90%, or doesn't seem to be working. Let's put it just simply as a pixel height, and we'll just put it in 500. And there we go. That seems to work. And we can drag that down so that we don't get the yellow and black stripes. Now into this, we're going to have on the left-hand side, we're going to have a menu. And then on the left of that, we're going to have a menu that's only visible in the desktop version. And over here, we're going to have some content. So remember, we're going to go from left to right to right. So we're going to add to that container, we're going to add a row. And from the row, we can now add 1, 2, 3 containers at the very least. So let's make sure that we've highlighted the row, and it's gone pink, which means there. So we're going to add 3 rows. Sorry, 3 containers to that. We'll put the first container in there, and it's going to be, well, let's just duplicate that. I'm hitting Control D on my computer to be able to get a second one which is next to it. Control D. There may be some, maybe we could have made that 100% or infinite height. Now, since it is bound, I believe, by a container above it, we can make that of an infinite height. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So the height, yes, we can. All right. One's always got to think a little bit about this, and we're going to make that one an infinite height. And so that one is the second menu, and this one we're going to make that an infinite height. So this one, we're going to drag that one out to, no, that's probably enough. Remember, that's the menu that's going to be visible both in the mobile version and the desktop version. That one is a little bit wider, so we'll pull that one out there. And the final one is going to have the content in it. Do we have a final one, or did I not? Yes, there's the final one needs to go over to the rest of the space that it can occupy, and we'll just drag that across here so that we don't get our yellow and black stripes. So we've now got the 3 areas that we can put our respective menus into, and just let's have a quick look at what we're looking at. So that one goes into all of them. This one is only the desktop version, and then we're going to be putting various things, it looks like, I think, into the menu. I presume when we click through these that things are going to change. It would make a lot of sense. So I think what we probably want to do is construct this menu first. And since we can see that the icons are all down here in a column, it would make sense to add to that particular container. We can highlight it there. We're going to add to that one a column, and there we go, column. And we're probably at this stage, I'd be I know I'm a little bit, I like containers a lot, but I'm going to probably see what happens if we just add a couple of icons straight into that. I'm probably going to regret this, by the way. So we're talking about icon buttons here. So let's just go up here and filter on icon. Oops, typo, icon button. And that's what we want. We're going to add an icon button there. And the point really being is, can we correctly space that if we just duplicate that? That's always been the problem that I've found. So we've got 2 icon buttons. It doesn't really work. So I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually go back to my own old technique of saying much better to wrap these in. So we're going to wrap that little widget in. Oops, I didn't ask you to replace it. I just wanted to take the icon itself, and I wanted to wrap that in a widget. Wrap widget in a container. Now, okay, it's all over the place, and we'll delete the other one. The reason why I'm going to delete it is because if I don't, I can't really control D it. So we might be able to get some, put some sort of padding and formatting into this particular one. So remember where we're going on this. We're going on to that. So we've got a black background, various icons that we're going to do. But believe it or not, it doesn't look like it, but we're sort of getting there. And so we can highlight the icon button and we can start sort of thinking about, I'm not quite sure where it defaults anymore. It didn't used to do that. I don't like it. I said it before. Let's take out the color and the border just to start off with, because I don't think we really want that. And then you see we're going to duplicate it down here. So any formatting that we do here is a little sort of quick trick on that. Any format that we do is going to be repeated. And I don't think that we need a border. So we can take the border width out, and that will take that out. And the border color, well, it should come out anyway, but let's just set that to a clear color. So we've got 0 border. And that icon now looks a teeny bit on the small side. So let's just pump that up from 24 to, I don't know, let's try 32. That still seems a bit small to me. Let's try 36. Okay, let's run with 36. Do remember that if I copy them all down here, let's have a quick look at the scope. I'll copy them all down here, and they're the wrong size. I'm going to have to change them. Actually, you're not going to have to change them individually. You can actually highlight them and change the dimensions all at the same time. That's a new feature that perhaps I'll deliberately, and that's what I'm saying, but let's put it at 42 and see how that works. So we've got the icon icon button there. We're going to make sure it's highlighted, because I'm going to I know we've got a plus sign and that's not what we want, but I'm not going to duplicate the icon button. I'm going to duplicate the container that contains it. So let's make sure that that is highlighted. And the reason is because it'll give the spacing correctly. And let's quickly go back to the scope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the quick way of doing it. So I'm not really liking the duplicate button at the moment by doing Control D. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to turn the container that has the column, not all of them, I want to turn that into black. And I am expecting, we got one of them back. Why didn't we get them all back? All right, this is getting a little bit annoying, because we may have to, it should have turned them all into black. But I'm giving you a principle, and I'm not being a great teacher, but I am simply going to go through each of the containers here now, because we've done that twice. I think that it proves that either my theory is wrong, or that you can change all the containers at the same time if you highlight them, or it's a little bit of a bug. But it doesn't really matter. You can see that we're achieving the same thing. The point really being is we've got to turn each of these containers into a clear color. Now we can see all the plus buttons. So let's go back quickly, so we don't lose track of where we're going. We've got to find these icons. Now that icon there is a custom icon, as far as I can tell. These ones we could probably find in the library. So let's think about how we're going to do that. That means that probably that icon is going to come from our assets, which are over here. Remember that we put those up there. We're probably going to have to upload those and set it to that. But the other ones we can probably go and find individually from the library. So we go to the icon button over here. Let's just remind ourselves again of what the first one looks like. That looks like a branding. It looks like a bit like a, perhaps I can just zoom in on that. It looks a bit like a sort of graph kind of thing. So we perhaps can tweak that later. So let's go and have a look at what we can do is, I don't know, let me put in graph as a search function. They don't look particularly right. Let me put it on pause, see if I can find a better one. Now, I really have actually failed to find a better one, and I suppose it would be a good time to talk about custom icons. I'm going to put something in there as a placeholder for the moment, but the point about custom icons is that if you don't find the exact ones that you want, then you can import them. And so I'm going to put that one as a star, just to tell me basically, actually, I think it should have been this position here, that I need to fill that, and I need to put into custom items. So that's led to another interesting situation where we're going to look about how we can import custom items. So I'm going to put, well, that should have been the graph one. Let's just put in, well, I don't know, let's just put in, it looked a bit like a building to me. And you got font awesome going on here. No, we haven't got that. It's not that one. I'm going to put that one in that position there. All right, they're all completely wrong, but it doesn't matter at this stage because we're going to come down and we're going to look about how look into how we import custom icons into that. Okay, and that might be a good point at which we're going to do that. So I think we should probably do that now, because if we go and have a look at this, we can see we're getting close to what we want. We've got a black background with white icons. We've got a situation where that icon is definitely custom and we don't know how to put those icons in. So let's now have a look about how you get custom icons in. Okay, so let's just talk one moment about custom items. I think I probably intimated a moment ago that they would be held in the media assets. Well, it's not completely impossible to do that, but it was actually terribly bad advice, and I'd like to retract it. What would be a much better way is to do it properly. Now, what is the difference, therefore, between an image that you can potentially import into your media assets over here that we have used earlier on in this tutorial as as an icon that we can click upon, and what's the difference between that and a custom icon? The main difference really is the firstly the format of the particular file, and the second aspect of it is if it's a proper icon that you can, as you can with all the other ones that are in the project. If we were to go maybe back to the page that we were working on, this icon over here, we can very easily simply just change the button style, but we can do other things to it as well. We can change it from white to red quite easily. You can't do that if it's just a fixed GIF file or a JPEG or a PNG file. Icons are quite different. And they take the same format in many respects, called a TTF, which is what you might have if you have a font in Microsoft Word or something like that. And they are much, much more flexible, but they are important, particularly if a client is saying that they have a particular requirement, a very specific requirement of branding. I'm going to change that back to white, but I think you get the idea that there is a difference between a GIF file or a PNG file or a JPEG, which is completely fixed in its colors, pretty much in its size. PNG can have transparent backgrounds, but generally speaking, they are not the same as icons. So let's clear that. Now, how do we import icons into FlutterFlow? Well, it's not the easiest thing in the world, I'm going to confess, but we do need to go into this section here, which is the design area of FlutterFlow, and we need to look at the typography and icons. And we did touch upon that also earlier, where you can set the font size and things like that across the whole of your project, so that when you choose primary text of display medium, that it'll choose that, and even colors. But there's another section here, and it's called custom fonts. And there are some explanations of how that works. Oh, custom fonts. I'm sorry, we're talking about custom icons. It's a similar process, by the way, but custom icons here. So we want to add an icon, and it's going to ask you to upload an icon file. And the first thing that you're going to see is that the only thing it's going to accept is a true type font file. So it's not a JPEG. It's not a GIF file. It's not a ping. It will not accept any of those as a potential source of a custom icon. And there is a tutorial here within FlutterFlow that teaches you how to do it. So I'm just leading you to that because I don't think there's any point in me covering a tutorial that's covered already by them.
Everything you wish for.
And sorry, that's blasting you out with some advertising on YouTube, but that's what happens when you click a link like that. But if you wait until the end of that, it's going to run through with you what you need to do. Fundamentally, you do need to go across to one of two particular companies that are capable of taking your original ideas and converting them into TTFs, true type fonts, um, uh, which we saw as being the TTF that we saw, add an upload icon. True type fonts is what I meant to say, TTFs. And I'm not going to cover that, but that's the only way to do it. And you will need to go across to other people's websites and play around with it. And it's not the easiest thing in the world. So if the icons are incredibly important to you and you need to get your own literally custom icons into it, do expect to spend at least a good afternoon getting 5 or 6 of those out. It's not for the faint-hearted on that. But I wanted to just illustrate to you the difference between a custom icon and a GIF file and that. Now I am probably going to cover that because as I said earlier in this tutorial, this is not about creating something that is roughly similar to the scope that I've been given. I mean, it has to be exactly the same. So I'm probably going to cover that, but I'm just probably not going to cover that right this second. So if we're going to look at that font there, and maybe some of these other ones, I think we can probably find that in the extensive library. If we go back to here of what we remember we were trying to do, extensive library over here down in the icons, where we can change the colors. There are several libraries here. There is material. There are 8,825 of those, 1,600 of those, and no custom icons in this particular project. However, it is possible if it's really important to you. Now, I am going to come to that. That one's gone black. I have no idea why. And that is the point about an icon, because the icon color seems to be unset in that one. Let's change it back to be the same as all the rest. Recent colors, it's probably that one. Use the color, and there we go. It's going to be white. But I think at this moment in time, I want to really continue with the layout of this. Now, I think you saw and I have to emphasize to no end that the starting point of this was getting the structure of the containers correct. It doesn't matter really how complicated your page is. The containers have to be done first. If you don't do them first, it's really going to be problematic later. So just think about that container, that container. Remember what I did. It was saying, well, we need a column firstly to put that in, and then put this container in, and then we went into a row, this one, and this one. It's really incredibly important. So now things get a lot easier because we've got this container here, and we need to add another column to it, and that column is going to be equal to this one: branding, users, interests, and logout. And I've been dying to get this logout button sorted out since we started at the beginning. So well, let's just sort of get on with it, and we're going to add the column that we can add to it. And as you remember, it doesn't really work to add icons or anything or even text into it. It's much better to add a container into it. And into that container, we're going to be putting words. Now, it would sort of make sense if those words lined up with these. Let's have a quick look again at the scope, whether they do actually line up exactly with the icons. They do. So it would make sense, since I kept these ones at 100 and 100, that I probably duplicated those containers. Now, let's think if I can well, they can be wider. And you see it doesn't even match there. So we can actually if we put this on infinity width, it's going to be infinity width of the container above it. I know I keep saying that, but it's important to understand that. Therefore, it's this width there, and that means we can put the words into it. We only fall into difficulty when we ask FlutterFlow to define the size of a container that's not defined somewhere above it, or indeed in some cases below it. Now we've got that container, we're going to be putting some text into it as far as I can tell. Let's have a look. We're going to be putting branding, users, interest, and logout. And it will save us a bit of time if we add some text into the first one. So we're going to add some text into the first one, and it's going to be hello world, and it's going to be right at the top. Now it's going to be a lot better if we do a couple of things. Firstly, get it roughly in the right position, get this whole thing sorted out, and I do believe that if we highlight the container, I was doing this the other day, and it's a bit experimental, this thing here, as whether that is going to put the text in the middle, and it didn't. And then I highlighted this one, and I want it to go right in bang center, whether they've got one of those things as well, and they do. And I think I'm right in saying that if we did that as well. So I don't know whether we needed to do the first one, to be honest, but we're a bit rushed for time. Maybe we didn't need to do them both, but we've now got it here in the middle. So we've got our hello world going. That seems to be going right, and we need to do that branding, users, interests, and logger. Now, since they're all 100, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they've only got 4. So let's just check out whether the top icon is actually nothing. Okay, that doesn't matter. We're just going to remove that once we've copied that down. It's the container, and I'm going to duplicate with Control D that. We could probably have altered the text on that a little bit better in advance. Okay, so we're just going to try and see if we can't do a Control D on that container. It wasn't successful last time. It seemed to control it in other places. Oh, there we go. 1, 2, 3. Well, it's actually 6 because we're actually going to remove that text one because it doesn't exist. And then we're going to fill those things out. And then we're going to make those invisible in the mobile view. We're going to talk about getting those icons right. And then we've got this space here that we're going to work on. So let's just quickly go back to the scope. And I think you'll see we're getting closer. So bear with me while we sort that one out. I am just going to come back to this icon over here because it's quite important. It is the Pro No Coders icon. So I did manage to get hold of the SVG version of that by going to the Pro No Coders website and downloading it. But I have been informed of a potential bug that SVGs may not be completely compatible with FlutterFlow at the moment, and I have reported it. So I just used an online converter to convert that to be a ping, just to be on the safe side. And as mentioned, I am going to add that to our assets. So I'm going to upload the media file, and you can see I've just done it. I did JPEG at first, but it came out with a white background, and as you probably know, pings have transparent backgrounds. So I'm going to open that up, and there is the logo, and then we can go back to the page, and we can take this icon here, and if you recall correctly, and that is called building, is that we would need to set that icon. No, we would have to set that now as an image. So we're going to have to change this icon button. I'm going to swap that out for an image. So we're going to replace that widget. Oh, it doesn't like us doing that. In that case, the simplest thing to do is just to delete that, and then we will add it in again as an image. I'll do this quickly as an image. And then we will go over here, and the image will not be network. That's why I went through the effort of doing that again. It will not be a network asset. It will be this one over here. And it needs to be a little bit smaller. So we're just going to resize that over here. Let's try 150. That didn't take. My numbers lock came off when I rebooted a moment ago. 150, 150. That is not working, so we're going to do it in the container above. So we'll make that container. Let's make that 75 by 75. Okay, so we have now put in the Pro No Coders logo in there, and it looks to me even now that either the image or the container, the inside of the container, we could do with a bit of padding there, I think. So it comes off the top. Let's try 10 for a second. Yeah, that's looking a bit better there, just to get it off the top edge. And as for the other icons, until I completely work out where to get them from, we're going to just leave these placeholders in. So no problem with that. And swiftly moving on. I've renamed them all, and you can see that I've also highlighted them all using the Shift key as I click through them, which allows me to switch between font size. There we've got there of 16. You can see if I change to 14 that they all change. I think 14 is about right. We also need to justify them all to the left hand side, and let's have a quick look. Yeah, they're all justified to the left. So let's work out how to do that very quickly. Okay, there is a slight problem with getting this to be aligned to the left. If you remember that we played around that a moment ago to get it into the central position of each of the box, and it took that absolutely literally. So if we go back, and I've highlighted each of them, and you can see we've got a bit of a problem. If I go then and put them to be highlighted to the left, they're bang up level with that. I'm going to just use a very simple technique, as I'm going to put some padding in here to bring it away from that. And we're going to use, I think 20 looks a bit small. Let's put 30 in there, and there we go. We've got something that is left aligned, separated from this menu view. And the other thing, if you remember rightly, and we might as well do it now, is that in this column here, that's not going to be visible in the mobile view, and we've done this before. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the mobile view here, and we're going to say whether it's not visible in the mobile view. And so if we go to the mobile view, it's not there. And if we go into the middle view, we'll see if that works out. We haven't really got a clear instruction on the middle view whether it should be that. And when I mean the middle view, I mean the tablet. And on the large one, we can also see that we've got some dreaded yellow and black stripes. They're not going to crash your app. In fact, they're not even going to show on your app when you publish them, but they are obviously telling us something we need to fix. So in the mobile view, that is gone. We might actually want to make that a little bit thinner. So let's work at the moment on the view that we already started with, which is the full desktop view there, and we've got some form of responsiveness going on. We've got rid of that container in the mobile view, which is consistent with the scope that we've given. So now, what are we going to put in this box? Let's go and have a look. Now, before we go on much further, I have now finally got my logout button. I've been looking forward to this for ages, and the reason why I need a logout button is because when we test it, we need to be able to see how it is when you log out and you log in. The transition that you'll find down here in the application over here as what you see when you log in for the first time. That page is wrong. In our case, it goes to the profile. So it goes to the home page, to the profile. If you remember, in our case, that was like a splitting place where we had a page load that basically said we'll go to the profile if they haven't filled it out before. But the point I'm trying to make is that we don't know how to log out. We're only going to see how it looks if we log in. So I've kind of been dying to have a log out button to be able to play around with. Now, Excuse me. In terms of what we're going to put on the action on this one, you could put the action on this little word over here, which is the logout. But why, when you can put it on the whole area of the container? So my recommendation is to put it on the container. And so we're going to put an action on that container, which is the logout. I'm going to add the action over here, and it's going to be down in the it's in the backend database side of things, and it's going to be Firebase authentication, and we are going to log out. It's going to be one of these. There we go, going to log out. It's actually as simple as that. If it's all set up correctly, it's as simple as saying that. And so now that is a log out button. It was quite interesting that you saw that there are a couple of other things going on in the authorization there, such as reset your password. And we're going to come on to that in this video, because I'm going to show you how you can customize the email that these people will receive, courtesy of Google, who will send that to your customer for free, how we can do that. And that's all taken care of on the Firebase end. All very clever. But we just wanted to have the logout button on this, and we still want to work out what's going to happen when we go through each of these. Now, one thing that did cross my mind when we were looking here at each of these menu items is that it does seem to indicate that that is in the admin portal. So how do you log out? If you're not an administrator, well, I would suggest it's probably up here. So normally I would probably go back to the client, and I would say, and I think I did actually, and I think I was told that there is a certain amount of duplication. The logout button over here might be the logout button over there, but let's not concern ourselves too much with that. We've got this. I'm going to sort these icons out. In fact, in a minute, I probably am going to go over and see if we can't get the right icons in there, because that's looking a bit, to me, a bit Mickey Mouse. But the branding and this thing, they're all lined up here. We've got our space to put in each of the forms over there. So let me go and look at the scope and see what our next move is. Probably not such a bad idea at this moment in time to spin up a test version of the application. We've done quite a lot of things, so we haven't really had a look to see whether they're all working. Generally speaking, I would say that 90% of the time they will be, 10% of the time they won't. And one should do this every 10 or 15 minutes at the least. I don't suggest doing it after every single change you make on the application. If you do that, that's going to slow you down enormously. Okay, I've spun it up initially and everything looks fine. The proof in the pudding is what happens if I click the menu button. Aha, it is giving us the layout. And of course, we've done nothing over here. And what happens if we go over here? We get back to this screen, log in, create account. Now, there are certain things here that the logic needs to be sorted out, because I don't think you could certainly not want to be in the admin screen if you haven't logged in. It doesn't look like we are logged in. Now, one of the reasons why I know we're not logged in is because it says create account and login. And if you recall on previous tutorials here, I had made that invisible when the user was logged in, because there's no point in having a create account and login button when you are already logged in. So I made that invisible, and we're just going to double check that that is correct right now. And here is the checksum of that on the row that contains create account and login. If you recall, we went through and we made that into a conditional visibility over here. And that means that if the user is logged in and the second value is false, because we don't want them to see it if they are logged in. So that whole row is going to disappear when people are logged in. So if we look at that test mode here, clearly something's not completely right, because we should not be seeing the login and the create account when we see this. But that is logic that we're going to come to. I'm therefore led to believe that this icon here is only available to admins. And therefore we need to make sure that that is invisible, and the whole page therefore becomes invisible if you are not an admin. And that is from the interpretation of the scope. It seems to suggest that this menu column here is in the admin portal. So that all makes a sense to me. It might be a bit complicated interpreting someone's scope the first time round, but I think I am completely clear now. It is that these menus that we're looking up here should not be visible, nor should any of this be visible if you're not an admin. So that was the next part of this tutorial that I want to come on to, which is how do you create an admin portal so that people can see certain pages and not others, and so that that menu would disappear, and make sure that the page that would allow someone to perhaps tamper with the admin information of general users behind, how can you hide that? And that's the first stage of that, is that we would need to go into the database, and we would need to define within the users a field that says, is that person an admin or not? I'm going to assume, for the sake of this tutorial, because it's in the scope, that it's really either they are or they aren't. And we need therefore to add a field to this, and I'm going to say, I'm just going to call it is admin. And what I mean by that is whether they are an admin or not. Now, it is possible that there would be several roles that someone could have in an application that you were developing. They might be an admin, they might be an executive, they might have read write this, they might have other privileges, and that would not apply. Therefore, you'd probably have to have different roles in here, but it's not in the scope. But this is the principle of how you would limit the visibility and availability of certain pages and privileges within the application that you're building. So I'm going to set this to a Boolean, because I believe it is simply yes or no. Are they an admin or not? So yes, they are an admin. They can see these pages, and no, they're not. So we're going to tick that. We've now got a new field over here. And we also obviously have a user list that we can, as long as you've got the I think the pro version of FlutterFlow, you're able to go in here, and perhaps you're able to edit some of the information there. But actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can do this on free. You can do this on the $30 one and on the $70 one at the time of speaking. Now I see we've got an error over here. Custom functions, that comes up quite a lot. Don't even worry about it. Just do it at the end. It doesn't even stop you compiling. It just comes up now and again to check that certain code that you've written is right. But we haven't tampered with those, so don't worry about it. But what we have done here is to include an is admin. So we need now to ensure on the page that we were working on here that this button is only available to those people who are admins. And that is again a conditional visibility that is going to be directed over on the conditional visibility of that icon. And it's really, you know, we're doing quite a lot of things over and over again here, if you think about it. So we're going to have a conditional visibility, and we're going to turn that on. And what's the condition going to be? It's going to be, the condition is going to be a single condition. Is the person that has logged in? So it's going to be the authenticated user is or is not uh, uh, an admin. So is admin, the authenticated user, is equal to, well, if it's right on this one, it's going to say true or false. It's going to be true. We're only going to let that button be seen if the authenticated user is an admin, is set to true. So we can confirm that. Now, we haven't actually got any system here which decides whether someone is an admin and is not an admin. So there's a little bit of forms that's going to have to go on in the background to be able to decide who is and who isn't. And actually, although it's not in the scope directly, it would be a little bit missing if we didn't work out who is and who isn't an admin. You've got to decide. I mean, the super admin was going to come in and say, I'm an admin, obviously. He's an admin, she's an admin, but the rest of them aren't. It's going to go something like that. And at the moment, we've got no mechanism of being able to do that. So at the moment, sort of no one is an admin. Although I might actually deliberately go in and change myself to be an admin just to prove something. And there's also the other thing that we can do if we're not even totally content with the fact that we've just got one button that might show admin features. We can actually put the same condition onto the whole container, because if this container is not available unless you've got this menu item, in theory it shouldn't really matter, but one could just be sort of slightly 100% sure. So I'm just trying to look at the container here that is holding the whole of this information here. I'm looking for something that goes all the way out, and I think well, it's obviously those container menus, but I think it's going to go further out than that. Theoretically, you can do that. How about this container? All the way out there? We could actually just repeat the visibility on that. I mean, that is actually a duplication of effort if you think about it, because if you can't get to the menu except by this hamburger menu over here, you're never going to see that. But if you just want to be doubly sure, then we can put also exactly the same conditional visibility into this, which would be a single condition, and it would basically also say that the first condition is if the authenticated user, just no harm in a bit of repetition here, is equal to, and the second value is going to be is admin, is true, confirm. So now we've basically said you're not going to see that menu item and you're not going to see that page unless you're an admin. And that sounds good to me. It's sort of a double security. And I did say that we were going to talk about treble security, where we're going to go into the back end and into Firebase. And we're going to look at what on earth do some of these Firebase storage things mean over here, and what do we mean by over here in this cogwheel. What does this do? Well, let's just touch base on that a little bit while we're here. We can actually say that certain collections here are available and visible to certain people. So the users, one might actually say that the only person that can look at the user is the person who is the user. And that would be a fairly good rule. I think it would be a bad rule to say that everyone could look at the user collection, everything under it, as opposed to some other things that we have going on here. Well, I've set these up in other tutorials. Maybe, the challenge here is it's not part of the users, it's not part of personal information. Maybe I want everybody to be able to see that. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody can see it, because the logic in the front end, what we're doing in FlutterFlow, may dictate that they can't see it. But it would mean that if we wrote the logic in a particular way that tried to access this challenge, and I set it to users only, it simply wouldn't allow you. I'm going to leave that, but that is basically the principle here. And we can write some very, very specific and complicated rules before we get to production to be able to ensure that the information that we think is private and privy to a particular person remains that way. Generally speaking, one does not need to worry about how FlutterFlow deals with all of these things, because it's very, very good at writing this rather complicated background code for you. But what you do need to do is every so often, if you're out of date, you need to make sure that you get back in date. Okay, and it will happen when you make certain changes to the back-end database, particularly if you add a field, which I just did. If you think about it, is admin or is not admin, is probably the reason why that triggered that particular requirement to create the rules. And there's another aspect here which is not listed here exactly. There's another time that you need to really think about updating your rules, is when you are creating filters or lists elsewhere. So you might have a search that you're doing and it says, I want to see all people who are over 21. It will probably trigger, let's get rid of that error because it's got nothing to do with what we're doing at the moment. It will probably trigger some kind of recommendation to update your Firestore rules. And just to be clear as to why that is in the background, Firebase is going to look at your list and say you've got a list of people, I want everybody over 21. It's going to say, well, if you're going to ask that question all the time and your list is in a very random order, what it's going to do, it's going to create right in the background, without you even knowing it, the list in the right order from people who are 5 all the way to the people who are up 99 in a sequential order, just so that when you ask that question again, it's going to be able to get that answer back to you quickly. It's called indexes, and that's what it does. And Firebase is very good at doing that in the background. So every so often, you're going to be asked to do that. Now, it may sound like I've gone a little bit off subject, but that is because we are cracking on and we are now in a position, I think, to go and experiment and see, well, I'm not an admin, so what would happen if I now refresh to this page on an instant reload? I would suspect that we're not going to see that I have any access to that particular menu item over there, nor that particular page. So I'm going to just put it on pause while we check that to be true. And then I've got to go into the back end and give me some admin. Oh, there you go. It's gone. How do I get now to those admin functionalities? I can't. And not only am I excluded from being able to get to those admin functionalities, whether I'm logged in or not, and even if I was to log in, they wouldn't be there. And I'll prove that in a second. Even if I was to log in here, I wouldn't have access to those unless there was a particular field in that database that says is admin and it was set to true. So I'm going to prove that in a second. And it's quite important to understand that in terms of creating an admin backend that is completely secure. Okay, we're at the login page of our application and we're in instant reload, therefore debug mode. And I'm going to go over here and check one of my emails, tom@mike.com. I'm going to put him in and we're going to see what it looks like. It would be right to have the login and create account going on before I log in, but you see that the sandwich menu over here has gone, and it's a good question as to whether there should even be an icon. I think that probably should also go. Since I'm not logged in, that would normally, I would expect that to be the avatar, the profile picture of a logged in person. But let's just check out that I can log in and everything is working as it was before. Okay, we're just going to test that the basic stuff is still working. And so we're going to we're going to go into the login over here. I'm just going to test, for instance, that the create account and the login disappear when I do log in, which they're supposed to because we're logged in. And we're also noting that the hamburger menu item on the left is not there, and it shouldn't be there even after I've logged in. And then I'm going to create myself into an admin in Firebase, and then we're going to do the same thing again. So we're going to put in tom@mike.com and my password. I'm going to log in, and we're going to see, yes, indeed, those two menu items disappear. Nothing spectacular going on here, but we're coming to it. And I still haven't taken out this as being my log out button. We've got one in the admin section, but we still don't have one for a general user. So I've put it on this, if you remember rightly, I put it on here and you see they instantly come back. So I'm just going to put this on pause and then I'm going to go and turn myself into an admin and see if we get this screen, and we can start testing the other part of what we've just done. So here in the Firebase section, I'm going to manage my content. And I'm going to go to the user and I'm going to change the is admin for Mike at tom.com, sorry, tom@mike.com. I want to edit that and make sure that he has the admin privileges. Now, very annoyingly, and I think that FlutterFlow will fix this soon, I can't actually scroll all the way across. There's no scroll bar on this page. And unfortunately, until they do something about that, there isn't really any other trick except from zooming out as far as you need to until you can actually see the page. I mean, see the field. In all fairness, actually, I think if we had just hit the edit button on that one, I think that we probably would have been able to see the entire information. Let's have a look as I'm zooming back out to 100. Yes, it does have scroll bars there, so perhaps that's something that they're coming to, but one would have thought one would be able to scroll there too. Anyway, I'm going to update that document, and that is now going to make tom@mike.com into an admin. So let's see now whether we get the hamburger menu on the left hand side coming down. Hi, I had a bit of unexpected behavior when I logged in as tom@mike.com, and the screen came up blank after I logged in. I wasn't even able to log out, and I realized that there was a bug somewhere going on. And typically when that there's a blank screen and it's really that unexpected, we're looking for a piece of information that wasn't sent by FlutterFlow. Sometimes you'll get a red screen, which was about what we call about a null value, something that really is empty and should have been. And I quickly realized that the logic of the visibility of this button was incorrectly set. It seemed a bit arbitrary whether it should or shouldn't within FlutterFlow have thrown that particular error or not functions. There was no red screen or anything. And if we come and have a look at this condition and to see what I've changed it to, originally had the condition simply to be saying that if the person was an admin, so is admin set to true? And I quickly came to realize that, well, we'd only be able to test that condition after the person has logged in. So it's a double condition. So I can change it from a single condition. So it's a multiple condition with an and between it. So both two things have to be true. It has to be that the person is logged in. Not that I think it matters that that is first in the list, but I put it there because that's how I'm logically thinking about it. And secondly, if he's logged in, let's do the test to see whether he is an admin or not. I think it was getting messed up because it was doing the test almost as quickly as it had decided whether the person was logged in, and it was tripping over itself. And that actually did fix the problem. So if we come over here and we log in again now as tom mike.com, we're going to see hopefully more expected behavior. Now that is expected because those logins have gone. We've covered that already. But here now, he is an admin, so the hamburger menu is there, and lo and behold, when we click that, we come through to it. So he's an admin, he can see this, and we've got our black and yellow stripes that we're going to tidy up on. We're not too fussed about them at the moment. They will not crash the app. So we've got some functionality going on. Still not finished yet, but it's coming together. One thing we didn't test a moment ago was whether we moved from the app version to the mobile version, whether the middle menu here disappeared, and you can see that it does. Now we've got some tidying up to do. Just going to fix this overflow here because it was really bothering the look of the whole project. I'm going to take the width of this container, it's 972, bring it down to 600. You can see that it's gone. That's the first test. A little quick trick, make it really small, see what it's gone, and then we're just going to drag it out until it still isn't there. I mean, that's 708. It doesn't matter if it's 708. It doesn't matter if it's 700. If you like round numbers, it wouldn't make a great deal of difference. But there, that's fixed. I did just notice that if we go to the mobile version of the same view, which does need some work, the container here that had the text menu items in it is still visible. That's because we put the invisibility on that container. So I'm just going to put it onto this one as well. That's going to get rid of that. We still clearly have some tidying up to do, but I'm just tidying up as we go along, trying to make sure it doesn't leave it all to a rather dull end. Okay, I did say that I thought I'd put a logout button on here and here. I did not, as it appears, because you'd be able to tell that by seeing that there would be an action symbol next to it over here. So I didn't. So it's so simple to do that. And then I'm going to quickly add that it is literally going into the um, backend database, Firebase authentication, and we're going to just log ourselves out on that one. I can do one other thing, which is fairly simple. I might as well just copy the action and put it over here on that container as well. And that way we've taken care of the logout, which I've been looking forward to, haven't I, since the beginning. I've still got it up here. It's very difficult to test without a logout button properly. Where are we over here? And we're looking at the actions. Oh, it seems to be on that one. Oh, actually, lo and behold, it was there on this one. Thought I put it in. Anyway, we put it on the other one too. Good stuff. Now we're going to come on to a page that I think is probably one of the most interesting because it has a lot of fairly advanced features on, and it's what's going to go into the users page. So I'm going to come to that one actually first. And if I just bring that up from the scope, it looks like this. Now, there's quite a lot of things going on here. Some things are very simple, users, 14 users, and we're going to do a count in Firebase to work out how many users we are. So the 14 will be a variable that will use the result of a Firebase search to count the number of users we've got. We've got add admin. Aha. So this is the place I talked about earlier where we're going to need to be able to upgrade people to admin status and add that is admin into the Firebase database. And we've got some interesting conditional filtering going on here, which is very, very important. So we're going to cover that quite in it's a slightly complicated logic to be able to get all of that working, but very important for many applications. So we're certainly not going to miss that out. This part of it is actually possibly the most simple. We're going to be putting into that. That's clearly a list, and whether we decide to use one of the templates, and I'm going to go and show you that to try and speed up the development process, or whether we build that from scratch. My personal preference is to build from scratch. But if you find something and we're going to have a look in a minute, we'll go find something in the template library that seems to fit almost exactly what you want to do, then it can save you, half an hour or so to get that thing looking really perfect. So we're going to move directly onto that, but I'm also going to do something slightly different. And that is, I'm not going to work straight into this container and into this widget tree because I think it's full enough. I think what we want to do is we want to create a new component. All right, and then we're going to what I call wire it up. And wire it up means that it may require some input values from that come from elsewhere on the page. And we're going to cover that. If we haven't covered it, touched upon it earlier on, you'll see it. Notice if you've tried anything like this before that there'll sometimes be a pass and a define button at the bottom of whenever you forward to another page, a redirect to forwarding to a page, you might find there's an option there to pass variables to it. It's a similar process, not identical, but that's why I want to do the component, because it's another technique that we need to learn how to do. And it may be that as you get more competent at developing FlutterFlow applications, you in fact simply start with the components and get the components right and build it up in that way. I think if I'd done that at the beginning, then we would have not got the basics right down from the beginning. So in order to create a new component as opposed to a new page, it's in the same place, and we are going to do new component. And this is exactly what I meant about potentially there being a whole range of components here. We certainly wouldn't be doing that now, but it might be that in terms of the list that we looked at there, where there was a profile image and a few other things, that you might find exactly what you want in the library of pre-configured widgets. And do remember, FlutterFlow and Flutter is widgets within widgets within widgets. Okay, so we can still, just because we decide to create blank here, doesn't mean that we have foregone the opportunity of going back and using some of these wonderfully laid out components, I have to say, and there's a huge library of them. But right now, to get us off the ground, we're going to create blank, and we're going to call that user. I'm going to call it user admin, because that is actually what it is. That's where an admin can come in. And of course, they can promote someone to an admin there as too. But it's a menu. That whole section on the left-hand side there is reserved only for admins. And it once you get into the building of a component out from the beginning, there aren't really a tremendous number of differences. One of the main differences is this concept that you're going to have to bring into it any other kind of information that we may need to have fed to it. That might actually be very, very simple to do, because if it's the logged in user, that is taken care of universally, globally across FlutterFlow. But if you wanted to bring in something that was very specific, for instance, that was held in a page variable, in the main menu that we've been creating at the moment, you might need to pass that. Now, I'm not 100% sure yet when we come to this whether that is going to apply in this particular case, but I did just want to give you the generality of the idea that we will at some point, and if it's hopefully it will occur here, where we will pass a parameter from the main page into the component. Because right now, what we're building is an absolutely standalone piece of code that you're going to be able to reuse all over the place. Now, someone said to me the other day that they thought that the only reason why that you wanted to create a component was in order to be able to reuse it again. And some people have thought, hey, that means that if I don't think I'm ever going to reuse this again, I won't turn it into a component. But the other main advantage of it is simplifying that widget tree. So instead of seeing loads and loads of lines in that widget that expand and contract, and you're worried where to put things, or it's hard for a human being to comprehend, it's best to be able to visualize little components, the building bricks, if you like, even if you only ever use them once. So having said that, let's start and build out this component to look like that user admin section that we just saw. Okay, before we even start on this, let's just analyze this page as to how the layout's going to work, the containers. I am an absolute advocate of working this out absolutely in advance. And what I'm seeing when I look at this page, I'm looking at a section over here. So we'd obviously almost always start with a column coming down here. So in the first column, I would probably say that there would be these would be in it. We would then have a column which would have the users and the user numbers in it. We'd be putting the row in, so that would be in a row. There would be a big space, that would be in another row, and that would be in another row. I would suggest that this add admin button was put in its own container and set to be on the right hand side. Now this is going to be its own container as well, and we're going to have this is a heading title, and what might or might not be challenging is to make sure it always lines up with the lists below it. So we've got to think about that. And this list is going to be a list view, and inside that list view we're going to have rows, and the rows are going to show us this information, and that's going to be it. Now I am going to create the container structure before I even start, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so we're in our component here, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a container. Now, unlike other parts of this tutorial, we can actually set both of these components to be infinity. They will fill the space above them, and as a component, it knows there's going to be something above it to define that those dimensions. So it knows that it allows us to put in infinity there. And to that, we do not add another container, we add a column. And if you do, you'll get confused as to why you don't see it. And then to that, we're going to add a container. That'll be the top one. We might as well make that infinity across as well. And we can make that a bit wider if you recall. We can do that, and within that, I believe that there should be 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row. So we can add a row to that, and we can add to that four containers. We'll put in one container. Might as well make it the height of that infinity to fit above it, and then we're just going to see if wasn't happy really with Control D the other day. Let's see if it's behaving today. It isn't actually. Ah, yes, it is. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we are. Okay, and that one is going to be actually a big space, and this one is going to be, maybe that space was a bit too big. These are going to be about split between the two of them. And we might actually do something slightly different here, because I think I am going to bring into a principle that is slightly different, which is, if you have a look at this, you could probably say that now this one here, all right, it can be taken to the end. You could probably say that, roughly speaking, and we've gone too far on that one. Actually, another reason why what I'm about to show you is a good idea. That is about 1. This one is about 2, and that is about 1, and that was about 1 in terms of ratios to each other. So let's introduce a new concept here on this container, and that's going to be the concept of flex. Now, what I've done here is I've almost deliberately made these containers all the wrong size. So we've even got some of this overflow going on over here. Now, the principle of flex is that it will decide into which ratio to put each of the containers here. And so if you highlight the first container, then one needs to choose one of the options for the flex, and the flex is down here. And I'm going to choose that, make it the biggest you can, and I'm going to give this the ratio value of 1. Now I'm going to give this one the ratio value of 2, which basically means it's going to be twice as big as that one. And I'm going to give the ratio of value of this one. Again, I'm going to make that bigger, and I skipped out, and I'm going to make that 1 as well. And I can make the ratio value of this one, I'm going to make it expand the total view, and I put that one in as 1 as well. And now you see that it is absolutely fixed out the ratios of that in roughly the way that we want. And what's beautiful about this is, look, if you expand that out, it's still in the same ratio as it was before. It's no longer relying on the pixel values that it was before. It's increasing them and decreasing them depending on the width of the page automatically. So I mean, this value here will stay the same down there. That's not the value that it's picking it up from. So if I go to that one, it's still 166. It's picking it up on the ratio of, because we've set flex. And if we were to set it back to this value, it would basically mean don't use flex. So another reason why I wanted to bring this in now is because, remember, we were saying that how am I going to get the headings? Let's just bring this across again very, very quickly so we can have a look. How am I going to get those headings there to be exactly aligned with everything above it when it's in its own container? And that's when it kind of struck me that it would be a good idea to introduce the idea of flex. And possibly when we're going through the tidy up process, we're going to fix some of these problems with flex, because with flex you actually don't get any overflows. Yeah, well, there are still some problems that go all the way down to this one here. It's still in the ratio of that, and we're going to have to work out exactly how we fix that and some of the other techniques that we've used. But let's stick with, at least with, well, we might as well stick with this one. And then to that, obviously, I'm going to just come back. I'm going to do the other things that I said, but I did want to just introduce flex to you here and now. Okay, so finishing off the general layout there into the column, we're going to add another container, and this is going to be the container, as far as I'm concerned, that contains the button that goes right on the green button that goes right on the other side. So back to the column, I'm going to add another container to that, and that is going to be below it, and that's also going to put that to infinity width. So we've got the button's going to go on its own over here. This is going to be the headings, and therefore we're going to put containers in there in the flex ratio of the ones below them, and that is the little trick that I wanted to show you. And if we go into the column now, we're going to put into that yet another container, believe it or not, and that one we're going to stretch that down. We'll make it infinity over here, and actually I suppose really yeah, we'll do that for the moment. And that, in this container here, we're going to be putting a list. Um, so, and I believe we can put the list in. I'm just thinking about this spacing again, because I want to think ahead on this one. I think if we said that each of these were, um, you can't do, you can't do 1.2 as the ratios. Just on the principle of that flex, I think we'd be probably going one. It's tough because you almost want to, um, I think you'd probably go 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 1 might be the spacing. As long as you do the same for the heading as you do for the ones below it, then it's always going to line up. And that's actually the challenge of what I'm trying to do here. So it's going to be little bit of hit and miss on that one, because in the here, well, in this column here, we're obviously going to we're going to add a list into that one, which we're going to get from the back end database. So that'll be a list view, and into the list view, we're going to add a container into that, and that container there is um, going to contain a row, and into that we're going to put the rest of our containers that's going to fit. Now we probably are going to use the flex technique there, so I'm just filling this out just to give you an idea of how I work on this one, and I'm not quite sure how many to put in there. I think it was 6 I wanted in total. Well, let's take out the last one just because we can always add it in the end. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's going into the heading. The button's going to go over here, so we can add into this container. We can probably add straight into that a button. Okay, I'm just going to put this button in this container here, and I'm going to put it in uh, correctly, and I'm going to put it in slowly. The first thing is I've created a container, and I want that container to take the size of the button. But if you notice, if I put a container in here, even though it's 100 pixels, it doesn't show up. We need to go to the container above it and remove the width of it. And you'll see that we've now got a container into which we can put the button. And there is the button. And the reason why it went all the way to the right is because this container has this in the alignment set. Okay, we can now apply to that button, as we did from our previous tutorials, the formatting, and we can rename that button to be admin, and we need to make that button wider. Now that's dictated to by the container above it here, so we want to stretch that out a bit. Let's make that say let's have a look. 250 seems about right, and probably the best way to get it to be slimmer. We need to put rounded corner. I thought we did rounded corners actually in the, yes, the rounded corners are there. To make it slimmer is probably to go directly into the button and give it some padding top and bottom. That means that it won't run into the rows below, the columns below. So probably at a guess, I would say we'd probably want to put maybe 20 at the top. 20 at the top. That takes that one out, and 20 at the bottom. So that's taking shape now. In this container, we are going to add a column, and in that column, we're going to add two containers, one to have the users and one to have the 14 users. So container, might as well make that infinity, which will be the size again of the you got it, the container above it. And then we're going to control D that down so we have one below it. That's taking shape. In here we're going to be putting a big text, which is the users. So that's going to be changed there. Users, and that's going to be a nice big font. Let's call that something like this. Probably could be even bigger. Doing this quite quickly because I'm going to sort things out in a minute. Here we're going to have in this container, not that container, where's the container below it? And then here, this is just going to be blank. Over here, we're going to have our filters, and here we're going to have filters. Now I'm going to carry on really just, and this is going to be our headings, and I'm going to carry on. And here, I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 containers, and I'm going. And I'm going to use flex on them, and we're going to see if we can't align them up with the ones below, but we're getting there. Basically, I've just tried to get the containers sorted out. As you can see, we've got our users. That's where it's going to say at the moment 14 users. This is where our 4 filter boxes are coming in. We've got our button. We formatted that using the theme style. And across here, I've put in, using the new flex technique, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different flex containers that are all the same size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I've actually decided that it might even be better if these were all totally equally spaced, which we can do on a row. Okay, so I'm actually believing that there could be a slight improvement on the original scope. Of course, that would check that out with the client. So consequently, here in the list view we are now working on, I've added a row where we're going to put in the data that's going to fit below those columns. And so on that, since I know that in a row we can equally space them, I am going to I'm not going to use the flex technique on them. I don't think I need to, but if I do, I'm going to come back to it. So let's see, let's control D. That I've got to see that it works once, because I've got stuck on that before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And do you know what? I want it to look right from the beginning. I'm going to actually make them flex as well. So slight change in plan. I'm going back to the single container, and I am going to set that to be maximum flex of 1. Okay, now since there only is one of them, it's going to go across all of them. But this is actually another really good way of showing how flex works. Oops, I hit something with my palm by accident. Now we've got 2, we've got halved, now it's a third, now it's a quarter, and now it is completely lined up. Wasn't that magic? I enjoyed that. I'm actually going to make one other change here, because if we again look back on the scope, you're going to see the image doesn't really need to occupy the same width as all the others. And I know we've got them all at 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So how do we make this one a half? Well, you don't. What you do is you change all the other ones to be 2. It'll have exactly the same effect. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it on both of them. This one here. So as I go across, this one becomes 2. This one becomes 2, and this one, yeah, you get the drift. And what I'm going to do, rather than boring you, is I'm going to do exactly the same for the top. Now that one's smaller, so this one is smaller as well, and then they'll all line up. Okay, so that's how we've done it. We've made each of the flexes on these ones, the flex to be 1. got to be careful you don't do what I did, which was keep coming in and changing the opacity because they're in nearly the same place. But the flex that's on the text on the container to be 1, and on these ones to be 2, 2, and 2, and that they still line up, which is beautiful, and they'll line up when we go to a smaller viewport. So that seems to be what we want. And if we wanted to change this one to be 1 as well, which we might because it's only got actions and a small icon underneath it, then we would do it to both of them. And that would have exactly the same effect. So why don't we actually do that? Seems to be, let's change that to 1. And again, we've got everything lining up because they're all on flex. And there we go. That's looking better. Now, clearly the next thing we want to do, now I'm not going to be doing these filters in this tutorial. I'm going to have to wait until the next one because that's going to be, it's a job in itself. It's really, really important. But I do want to do is just finish off at least getting roughly the layout of this particular page looking right. And so, well, in the list view, we've got our rows going on. Now, within a list view, we clearly have to connect to the back-end database here, and that's we've covered that. But we come up to here to what I call the filing cabinet here, and that's going to be an API called, no, sorry, it's going to be a query collection on the users collection here, and it's going to be a list of documents. And as soon as we do that, you'll see it's going to create the children automatically for us, and that's kind of worked. Well, we haven't got anything in any of these containers yet, so I might just put in fact, if this one is here is a in this container goes in the profile image, so we can actually put in the image there. And you see, that's what I was looking for, to make sure that you see this kind of grayed out system going on here. That indicates that we've pretty much correctly formatted that as a list. And then we might as well, since we're over here on that image, we probably want to confine that by the container above it. I would say, let's try, what happens if we go 75? It's always confusing about these, what defines the images there. I've got a width of 75 and 75. You can see that it's clearly not square. That's probably because we might probably better off putting 75 and 75 over here, and that should make it square, and lo and behold, it doesn't. I'm going to come and fix that in a minute. But in actual fact, what I just wanted really to do is not to get that nut right yet, is to recall that the path of that is going to be the user document, and it's going to be the profile image. Now, the user documents, photo URL, that's the one. And perhaps we can just fix the dimensions of that over here. I hadn't really thought of that. No, it is a bit obtuse. I'm going to try and be a bit more clear about that in a tutorial about what is actually fixing the size of an image, because it's can be a bit baffling. It's really, trial and error. It's a couple of minutes, but it's an annoying couple of minutes. So let's see if we can do that. So just finishing on this page, on this container here, we've got, and the container next to it, we've got Lexi Gray in this case, and below it we've got her job title. So for that container, we're going to be adding a column, so we can put those two things into it, and to that column we would be adding two containers. Container 1, might as well, as I always do, make it infinity. In fact, and this one we might as well make it thinner, because we're going to copy that as well, duplicate that. So we're going to duplicate that so we can put the job title in there, and the name of the person there, and we could add to that container a text, so we could just start getting the feel for this. And I'm not going to go, we're simply not going to finish this in this tutorial, and we're going to put into that one also a text field, and that one we're going to kind of leave small. The same was for this one, containers. I'm going to pause that, and then I'm going to put in a few details there just so we can fill out the structure, and I'll unpause it when I've done that. Okay, and just on this final container, see I've done the other one. Need to add that icon button. And I'm fully aware of the fact that I have to go and find other icons. I'm just going to put it in a placeholder there. And we are getting something that is looking much more like the scope in terms of its structure. Okay. And I'm pretty happy we're going to get that looking exactly how we want. Okay, I think just before we come to the end of this tutorial, because we're hitting over 1.5 hours now, is that part of this section of the tutorial was about layout again, because one can't really um, see enough of the techniques that can be used there. But it was also about having a starting point that was a component rather than a page. So I think it would be amiss if I didn't put now this component into the page that it's designed to go. So we're going to go back to our home page, and it's going into this container here. So we're going to test it and see if it works, and come back, of course, the next time and fix all the things that don't, and there will be several. So we go to the widget tree here, and we've got our container. Let's go and find that here. It's got nothing in it, and what we're going to add is we're going to add a component, and the component is going to be the user admin component, and there it is. And it has used its flex, if you like, to try and do its best to fit into the page. And if we expand out there, we can come in here, it shrinks, and we've even got some word wrapping. That format's not going to work entirely for the mobile view, and that is actually probably going to be probably a 45-minute tutorial in itself. But as you can see, that is fundamentally working. We probably even, I mean, I'm just thinking, will it look bad with these uh, text running into here? Well, we're going to come to those.